Good morning, Nick.
Good morning. Hey, I'm so happy to be here. The reason I'm here is I am tired of listening to the propaganda and the misinformation and the deceiving done by a News Cafe, Shasta Scout, and a Reading Record Searchlight. I want to get the word out what us common laymen think about what's going on in our great city of Reading and our great Shasta County.
I've been bugging Nick for about a year to come in here, and he finally got a hold of me and says, I'm ready to do a podcast with you. And I was like, great. Even if I can get you in once a year, I'm happy with that. But then he goes, no, I want to do something regular like weekly. And I was like, yes. So we came up with a name. It's called Right Side of the News. And here we are. Here's our first go at it. We're going to be streaming live every Friday from 7 to 8 or so, or we might go a little shorter or longer, depending on, he wanted to talk about local government wasted spending, and I told him that would be like about an 8-hour show. So we're only going to touch on a few of those subjects, but probably for the next 3 or 4 episodes, I'd imagine we're going to be talking a lot about that.
Every Friday morning at 7 a.m. What stirred me is this 1 cent tax that they want to put on to us. It's 1 cent, but it is actually almost a 14% increase in your 7.25% sales tax that you pay right now. 1 cent is 13.78% of the 7.25 cents we're paying right now. And, as a taxpayer, I wouldn't mind paying more taxes if I thought our taxes were being used properly. But I've never seen anybody that can throw money away the way our government does.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing the peasants always want is more taxes. Every time I talk to us common folk, they're like, we just need more taxes and more government. I mean, that just seems to be the norm. And supposedly this is a grassroots movement. And it's a citizen-led initiative, supposedly. And so now it only needs, maybe that's strategically because they only need 50% of the vote now. I don't think they will get that, but I don't know. I have my suspicions, but that's all speculation.
Well, the thing is, if you go to Free Fire Radio, that's KCNR1460.com, and go to the archives and go to December 19th, the second half of the show, if you start about 1:27, you can listen to Mike Lataw talk about the 1 cent tax that they're going to want. And this is like 6 or 8 weeks before it came out in the Record Searchlight that this is a citizens-led initiative. And I was listening to it, and Mike Lataw said, if you pass this tax, we'll have 2 new fire stations in 2026. I don't think it's even going to be voted on until 2026.
So this was before the city citizen-led initiative?
Yes, he came out. So I'm suspecting that... in fact, I'm pretty sure that the McConnell Foundation is behind it, in my opinion. This is my opinion on a lot of this stuff. I do have facts. But it's my opinion that the city of Reading and the McConnell Foundation are the ones that put this together, and they never have enough money. Speaking of the McConnell Foundation, Patrick Jones is supposed to call in at 7:30, and he's going to tell us how our road money has been maybe steered to the benefit of the McConnell Foundation over on Old Alturas Highway. So I certainly hope he calls in and explains it to us, because he explained it to me and I couldn't keep up.
Also, a little sliver of my property for $250,000, They can have like 1/8 of an inch of frontage of my property.
Well, Patrick will get to that. And it's just not 1 piece, it's 3 pieces.
No, I get that.
But, it's the way they waste money. Listen to this. In 2023, Barry Tippin was making $290,000. In 2021, he was making $219. That's a $69,000 raise in 2 years. The big one here is Kim Niemer, and she has retired. In 2023, she was making $266,700. In 2021, she was making $131,000. That's a $127,000 raise in 2 years. Now, you listen to Mike Lataw, and he's going to tell you that the city of Reading is cut right to the bone. There's no place they can save any more money. And the thing about it is the deceiving way that they are getting people to sign this petition to put it on the ballot. You got any ideas on that, John?
I don't know, but I'm curious who is actually paying for the professional signature gatherers.
Well, I'm just guessing, but I would guess it's the citizens that are running this, that are pushing this initiative. And I think it's one of the biggest nonprofits here in Reading. Without saying names, I think you can figure out who it is. But
I want to talk just about my experiences with the professional signature gatherers. Okay,
Go.
I ran into two, and they came up to me and they go, "Hey, do you want to help the fire department?" I was like, "Well, who doesn't want to help the fire department?" I mean, you know. And I said, "Well, what is it about?" "Well, just sign here, and you're going to help the fire department." I go, "Well, what am I signing here?" And he goes, "Well, it's going to increase the funding for the fire department." And I said, "Well, is it going to increase taxes?" And he goes, "Well, you had to have read it all." And I go, "Well, what? So it does raise taxes." And he goes, "Well, yeah, it's the 1 cent, increase in sales tax." And I said, "Oh, no. I said, I'm out of here, dude." And then I ran into a lady. This was a man. And then I ran into a lady like a day or two later, and same thing. "Do you want to help the fire department?" And I was like, how? And she goes, "Well, just sign here and it's going to help the fire department. And it's going to increase." And I'm like, this is about the 1 cent sales tax increase. And well, yeah, but so I only ran into two, but they were very elusive and not forthcoming with what it was. They're just like, and I don't know if you've ever seen Mark Dice or if you know who Mark Dice is.
Oh,
so,
yes.
I mean, there was a time where he went around and he was in San Diego, which obviously Shasta County is a little different than down there, Reading. But he actually was saying, "We're going to go door to door, sign this, and we're going to go door to door and confiscate guns from all law-abiding gun owners." And they started signing it. So then he started just getting more extreme. He ended up going to where he says, "Yeah, just sign here, and we're going to have the Nazis come and go door to door and confiscate all the guns from the law-abiding citizens that own guns." And they're like, "Oh, yeah, guns are bad." And they signed it. So, I mean, how many people are just like want to do good and just, they don't understand what they're signing? And obviously it has to be voted on that. But anyways, that was my 5 cents.
Well, I ran into a gal myself over on Safeway over by Lowell's, and she had a little table set up, and I walked over and I said, what kind of petition you got going on here? And she says, "Well, if you sign here, we'll get a new fire station." I said, "Oh, really?" I said, "What else would we get?" "Well, you'll get 20 more police officers." I said, "Oh, okay." And I chatted with her a little bit. "Is there more?" She says, "They're going to resurface and expand the runway out at the airport to where they'll handle DC-10s. DC-10s carry a lot more water to fight these forest fires up here. So we're going to have a better forest fire fighting. Roads are going to be resurfaced. And we'll stop the revolving door. Do you know what that is?" And I says, "Well, that is not enough beds at the jail. With this, we'll get more beds." She said, "Yes." And I said, "Well, how long does this go on?" And she says, "Well, it's right here. All these things are mandated. This has to be done for 5 years. After 5 years, they can spend it on whatever they want. So, if you trust the way the city has been spending your money now, I would say sign for this. But if you don't, this doesn't look good for me." And I said, "Are you, do you get paid for gathering signatures?" She said, "Yes, I'm a paid signature gatherer." And I said, "Well, I don't think I'll sign right now, but thank you." And, she was deceiving. Instead of saying, "This is a 1 cent tax. It'll increase your purchases by 1 cent. And here's all the things we could do with that 1 cent." Instead, to me, she was promising these things would get done. And I don't believe they will. I know they won't buy more jail beds. It might help finance Matt Plummer and Alan Long and Police Chief or Sheriff Mike Johnson's wet dream of having a rehab facility down south of town. And I wonder, is that what the citizens want? I dare say if you put it on a ballot, do you want a rehab facility down south of town or do you want a 500-bed jail? I dare say the citizens would say we want a 500-bed jail. I personally don't believe that rehab works all that much. Anybody I've talked to says it's got a failure rate of, anywhere from 85 to 90%. If it was only 50%, that's too much. And when somebody goes, say somebody breaks into your business and costs you $50,000, are you satisfied when they sentence him to rehab? Is his debt to you paid? Personally, I want a little flesh. I want to see him go to jail and be punished.
Yeah, I got a lot of stories on that, and it's unfortunate that people blame the police.
Well, the thing about the police is they are told to do what they do by their police, their chief of police, and they've got to get frustrated that when they pick somebody up and refer charges to the district attorney's office and no charges are filed, it's like just throwing your hands up in the air and saying, why am I here? I took this criminal in, I referred him to the DA. The DA doesn't prosecute, probably because there isn't any jail space to put him in if they do convict him. And, the whole thing, in my opinion, the criminal problem in Shasta County is because we don't have enough jail beds, which we should have had 15 years ago.
You know what we really need is just let's get rid of all the roads and turn them all into bike lanes. I think then everything will be law and order. I'm being sarcastic here, but
oh damn, I was getting ready to go buy a bicycle.
Yeah.
Well, I see what they're doing on Market Street here or California Street, and I wonder what that's all about. I think that's all about bicycles.
I drive by North State Ice all the time. They're right on,
I know
Trinity.
Exactly where you mean, yes.
And those poor guys got to park on the street now. And they park on the street, and they have to have a guy out there like paying attention because it creates a very dangerous situation. And it's just it's horrible. I mean, like I said, I'm all for. But the thing is, we don't have a college. Well, I mean, we have a community college, but it's not like the majority of people are commuting on a bicycle.
If they were, they wouldn't out to Shasta College anyway because it's way out in the sticks.
So I used to live out in Mountain Gate. Okay, I was one of the only guys with a truck when I was real young, and I was around 20 or so. And everybody used to call me and be like, John, I got to move. John, I got to do this. John, I got to do that. Well, my truck broke down. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to leave it broke down for a while so I don't have to help. I was in real good shape and I loved exercising. I used to ride from Mountain Gate down to off a railroad, kind of where Owens Pharmacies. I rebuilt Honda and Acura transmissions there. And I used to ride my bike from Mountain Gate all the way there. And there's no bike lanes. And I figured out ways to get there. I rode power line roads and back roads and then, you know what I mean? I know that a lot of the roads are not safe, but if you want to get somewhere and you're riding a bike and that's how you commute places, then there's safe ways to figure out how to get to where you want to go.
You know what I figured out?
What's that?
Life isn't fun if everything's safe. It's kind of fun being out on the edge.
Yeah. So I was on the river yesterday on a paddleboarding date with my wife, and we went from the Sundial Bridge or the rodeo area right there.
I heard you upped her life insurance before you left. Is that right?
Yeah, I did. I didn't see her this morning. No, I'm just joking.
Here's that new life jacket I bought for you, honey. Put this on.
So I was a competitive swimmer, and I get it though. I understand why there's rules. You're supposed to have a life jacket on your vessel, or you can get in trouble or whatever, which I know. So I talked to the one guy and I said, hey, are you guys looking for a body or something? Because they were just like everywhere. And I thought someone went missing or something. And they were like, oh no, we're just training. And he goes, hey, how are you going to put that life vest on if you fall in the water? And I go, well, I swim across the river and back, which is true. Up by the Diesel Horse Bridge in Redding, I actually walk up the road and I swim across the river, and then I end back up at the boat dock, swim back across. And I'm used to the cold water, and I just said I don't, wear a life jacket. I think you should be able to ride a motorcycle without a helmet. I would, if I rode a motorcycle, I would wear a helmet personally, but I'm just saying I believe in dangerous freedom over safe tyranny. Anyways, well, what I didn't know, well, and he says, okay. And my wife says, well, I put it on before the rapids. you don't actually have to wear it. And then he goes, well, did you know you have to have a noise device? And I go, a noise device? And I go, what do you, he goes, yeah, you have to have a whistle or a blowhorn or something like that. And I was like, well, I'll make sure to have one next time. And he was cool. I'm not, but I didn't know you had to, if you want to go down the river on something, you're supposed to have some kind of noise device too, which my wife actually thought that wasn't such a bad idea but I'm just like, well, if I don't want to wear a whistle, I don't need it's my own choice.
Sure.
If I don't want to wear a life vest, I'm not going to wear one. And if I don't want to have a noise device, I'm going to bring a whistle. I'll have a whistle on the freaking vessel just in case. And it's a liability for them too. I get it. They're just trying to do their job. But I didn't know you actually had to have a whistle or a blowhorn.
You've got to have a license to operate a boat now.
Even just a little, even if you're just out there fishing and stuff?
Yes. Yes, that just passed. And
is that a California law?
I'm pretty sure it is, yes.
Wow.
Well, we're lucky we got Big Brother to look out for us.
Yep.
You know, we've got such a nice resource on that river down there.
I love the river.
I've been fishing the river since I was about 15. I don't fish it anymore. There's too many people down there.
It depends on where you go. There's, if you're on a boat, it's all the good fishing spots. There's usually quite a few people out there when the fishing's good. But if you're fishing off the shore, you can find some places where you're like, there's nobody else.
Oh,
out
I
there.
prefer to fish from shore now. If I go down there, I haven't gone down there for quite a few years, but it's kind of fun to stealthy sneak up on a hole and throw a salmon egg or a glow bug out there and whack a couple of trout real quick. But
I wanted to talk while we get back on the track of just wasted money or money that's, so I got a red light ticket from the camera, and I've never really liked those things. I never got one before. I got a 1-ton truck, and there was nobody else there. And I actually, a lot of people get them where they actually do, like, they don't stop all the way and then they turn right, like a California stop, if you want to call it that.
yes,
Even though it's perfectly safe, they're still paying. Mine was said, I think, $430, but then you can do traffic school for $570 it would cost if I wanted to do traffic school, so I didn't get a ding on my insurance or whatever, right? So you can just pay more money and everything goes away, I guess. But so I actually went through it, and I'm not saying that I probably should have stopped. I misjudged when it was going to turn red, and I barely made it to where my back tires were basically on the crosswalk line, like it was pretty close. Another millisecond and I would have been legal. But anyways, I got the red light ticket, and I'm just like, well, where does this money go? And I kind of looked in. I know that there's a company, Redflex, that actually is the one that owns the cameras, or at least they're the ones that get most of the revenue. And so I started looking in. Redflex is owned by, let's see here, Vera. Oh, where did it go? Turn it. This was Vera Mobility. That's what it was. So anyways, what happens is we pay a certain amount of money every year for each camera every month. So the majority of almost all of this money goes to Redflex, which is owned by Vera Mobility, who's a publicly traded company. Guess who owns that? The top people are BlackRock, and then the next one, Vanguard.
oh my goodness.
So, and then there's the Gores Group, which is Alec Gores. So we've got, none of this money stays local. Well, a little bit of it, only for the operating costs. Okay. So what it is Redding pays Redflex $4,375 a month for each of the red light cameras, right?
Well, the thing is, we get a small percentage of the fine, but it sounds to me like we're paying that small percentage back to rent the cameras.
The Gores Group, which is Alec Gores. I think what happens is I think from what I break down is that we keep enough of the money. Now, in the beginning of this whole thing, we bought a few vehicles and upgraded the computer system for law enforcement, or the city of the police department. But that, since then, basically they have it in their contract where you don't actually, the city can't lose money So
Yes.
they got to at least break even. So, but to make us safer. Okay. So what happens is we get a certain percentage of that sale for administrative, because we actually run the cameras. We have
Small percentage.
small percentage basically because they don't even pay attention to the cameras or anything. We paid them to install the cameras, to train us how to keep track of everything. I mean, what a good deal. You go there, you set up a thing, a big freaking honey hole is what we are.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
so I was kind of thinking, if I was able to get pay this $430 and it went, I was like, hey, at least it can go to the fire department or go to the police or go to building a road or something. And no, it only goes because it has to go through the court system, right? So there's an administrative cost of the tickets that are generated from these red lights. So we get to keep enough to not lose money on it. But that's just going to the people that monitor the cameras in the court system. The rest of the profit goes to Redflex, which is owned by Vera Mobility. And I mean, a bunch of globalist money. So just to throw it out there, the revenue that Vera Mobility made in 2024 was $879.2 million. $879.2 million is what Vera Mobility made. Now, as far as Redflex made their revenue. I couldn't get any 2024 data, but in 2023, Redflex generated a total revenue of $87,719,000. Now, that's not just from Redding. They have, multiple cities across the U.S. I think they even have a little bit of accounts in Canada. But if they made $87,719,000 off of cities to make them safer, I mean, this is, if we're going to have red lights, at least we should be keeping that revenue. I mean, at the very least. I don't like them, but that's a separate subject. Why do we not make any money off of this? It charges the average people who a lot of times are making safe turns. How much safer does it make us? And even if it did make us safer and the people really want these red light cameras, that money should stay local. This is a scam, and somebody's getting some kind of kickback from this, I would imagine.
Well, I remember the first red light that was put in Redding, and it was explained how it worked. And I thought, well, why aren't we just putting our own in? What do we need this company for? And the chief of police, or the former chief of police, one of the chiefs of police explained that if your front tire is across the crosswalk, entering the intersection, when it's yellow and it just turns red, you won't get a ticket. You don't have to be all the way through the intersection for that. And I just couldn't understand why we hired another company to put those in when we could do it ourselves. They have, there's not as many accidents since they put those in. And, well, that's one good thing. But, is it worth all that revenue leaving town? They could hire another 20 police officers if they'd kept that revenue.
Yeah, and KRCR ran an article the other day, and it was, I don't want to get in and bag on them too much, but they talked about, let me see here. Let me just go to the article here. I'm just going to go into it. This is the headline. Redding's, and this was May 21st, 2025. So this is just a couple weeks ago. Redding's red light cameras generate nearly 1.9 million in 3 years. Okay. And you go in there and they talk about, and if you're not someone who's digging into things or knew anything about Redflex or any of this stuff, you would think that the city put these cameras up. They were operating them. I mean, who, if you're not digging into this stuff, you wouldn't know. And this just makes it's very misleading. I mean, if you type in, I'm not going to read the whole article, but it never says that any portion of the money goes to Redflex. It doesn't talk about any of that. It just literally says they generated 1.9 million in 3 years.
They're absolutely deceiving you.
Very.
When somebody deliberately deceives you, they're lying to you. When you're leaving something out of the conversation, you know people would want to know. They're lying to you.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very short article. Anybody wants to go and read it, look up Redding's red light cameras generate nearly 1.9 million in 3 years, KRCR. And I was very disappointed to read that because pretty much all of the profits going to BlackRock and Vanguard that own Vera Mobility. And like I said, Redflex generated $87,719,000. I mean, I think they need some more money because BlackRock and Vanguard doesn't have enough. So why shouldn't Shasta County and Redding just be a big cash cow for them and give them some more money? They don't have enough.
You know, you think of any other ways the city of Redding throws money away?
No, but I think we should raise 2 cents and then we can give the other cent just straight to BlackRock and Vanguard.
That's a good idea.
I think we need a citizens-led initiative. I mean, why not just go for a flat 10%? Let's just raise it 2.75.
You know, I think we ought to just send our checks to the city of Redding and they can send us back what they think we need to live on. I can see the federal IRS doing that. You know, there's a lot of things the city wastes money on. One of them is our electricity. I mean, look, you talk about a cash cow for the city of Redding. Our electricity should be pennies, and we're paying a lot of money. Did you know that every commercial electric bill has a $70 charge for reading your meter?
You know what? You just told me this the other day, and I was actually kind of shocked because I don't actually pay the my business partner. My business pays those bills, and it's just like a number to me. It's like, okay, we paid $300, we paid $500.
Sure.
Some months are $3,000, but you know, we have a pretty big area. So, but do you know what? I actually have 3 meters. And because I I had one location and then I expanded, knocked a wall down, and then I bought the warehouse next to me, it's all one building, but I as I expanded, but I have 3 different meters. I'd be curious to see if I'm actually paying a $70 charge for each one, even though they're all right next to each other.
You are.
What a freaking joke. Well,
Robin at Don's Sandwich Shop, she's in the same shape you were in. She's got 3 meters. She gave me a copy of her bill. I neglected to blank, but right up there in the top corner, $210 charge, and that it's service charge. I don't know, some kind of charge. It doesn't say for reading the meters. $210 she pays. You know what?
Well, and how much electricity? Because I mean, I get if your bill was $30,000 a month, I guess that wouldn't be that much of a percentage more. That'd only be like a 1% more, I guess, if your bill was. But if your bill's $300, let's say your bill's $210 and you have a $210 fee, you're now paying double.
Well, you take Benton Air Park up here. There's 20 hangars up there. Those guys aren't there 24 hours a day. They're there, some of them probably just once or twice a week. My friend that told me about it up there, he builds airplanes. He's up there all day, every day. He said his electrical charge is maybe $85.90 a month. Then they add on the 70. So you've got each one of those guys that are using probably less than $25 of electricity a month. They're paying almost $100 because 70 of that is for reading the bill. And they've got a separate meter that takes care of the floodlights and the video, and the electric bill on that's about $15 a month. So it's $85 a month.
If you're paying
to read that meter. And all the meters are right there on one wall. All your strip malls, if you go around behind them, you'll see all the meters in one wall. Now, how they could save money on that is to put it out to a private entity to read meters.
Yeah, because at $70 now that
I'll read your meters for $25 a meter.
I'll do it for $5.
There you go, already undercutting me.
You know what? That should maybe be something brought up. I mean, maybe there should be a citizen-led initiative on this, to be honest, because you're not really supposed to gouge people on electricity, I believe you're supposed to be like a break-even thing, isn't it?
I don't know about that, but I know that my relatives, my father and all my uncles and my one aunt, they come from Missouri. They were raised on a farm, Milford, back there. And my uncle he always got the Lamar Democrat, and he showed me a little deal in the classifieds. It said, there will be no electric bill this month. He said that happens twice a month. He said years ago, the city fathers invested in some kind of electric generation, and they get their electricity for cost, and the little bit they make, it adds up, and if they get over an excess amount, it goes back to the ratepayers, and twice a year probably, they don't get an electric bill. That's the way it's supposed to work. That's the way ours work. But we've got the pilot program. They probably drag in $8,000, $10,000, $12,000 a year. Pilot payment in lieu of taxes. And what else? Oh, they make loans and you don't have to pay them back. The REU loaned the city of Reading $3.5 million to put in new turf at the soccer park out there next to Big League Dreams, the city of Reading's other big failure. And the city of Reading decided they didn't need to pay it back. And it was the three Bethelites up there, Mark Mazzano and Mike DeQuisto. They voted, no, we need to pay that back. But who was it? I think it was, I know it was Julie Winters and probably Aaron Reisner and who was it, Kristen Schrader? That's my guess. But, we've always got three Bethelites on the council up there, and they make some funny decisions, in my opinion. And now you take Big League Dreams. They're, in my opinion, they're holding our arm behind our back. If you don't pass this 1 cent sales tax, there's a possibility it'll get shut down. Well, it's paid for. It was paid for by a grant, and they loaned it. It was corporate welfare is what happened there. And it was Mike Warren that shoved it down our throats. They signed a 32-year contract with Big League Dreams. Maybe we're going to go to Patrick, and we'll get back to this because Big League Dreams has always been a thorn in my side, and I never get tired of talking about it.
Patrick, you there?
I'm here. Good morning, gentlemen.
It is a good morning. Thanks for calling in, buddy.
Well, thanks for having me on. And, for those that don't know, I went to 12 years worth of city council meetings. I served for 8 years, but from 2002 to 2015, I had a perfect attendance going to city council meetings, and I learned a lot and probably learned some things that I wished I hadn't, but unfortunately you can't undo what you've seen. And a lot of issues with RU. That's for another day, but I think we wanted to talk a little bit about some of the other corruption that happens within the city. Am I correct?
The main thing I wanted to talk about was Old Alturas Highway and the end result and why we're putting money into it.
Yeah, and so you back up a little bit. When McConnell Foundation, and in fact, if you want to read a great article, there was a great Wall Street Journal article back in 2001 that talks about what happens in a small town like Reading, and they were specifically talking about Reading and a philanthropy organization that hooks up with your local government, what could happen. And if you read that article, exactly what they said has happened. And so an issue came up back when I was on council, 2006, 7, somewhere in there, where the Reading School of the Arts, which is a McConnell Foundation project at the corner of Shasta View and Old Alturas, they needed signals there. It was just a four-way stop. So McConnell Foundation wrote a check to the city of Reading for $400,000 for signals. And then a couple weeks later, they said, we don't want to do signals. We'd like to do a roundabout. So the city said, well, get an engineering firm and design it, and let's see what it looks like. So they hired Omni Means. Omni Means completed it and said, yep, we can do it there. And I asked what the price was, and they said, well, it's about a wash. And I said, well, that's funny. That's not a term I'm used to. I want to know what the price is. And they wouldn't exactly say. Well, when it was all said and done, it wasn't about a wash. It wasn't $400,000. It was $1.2 million. So I went to the then city manager, Kurt Starman, and said, hey, we're going to need a check to cover the difference. And he goes, well, boy, sorry, just a shame we didn't write it up that way. And I go, yeah, no, we do. That is a cost. That is part of their deal. If they want a roundabout, they had to pay for it. And he goes, well, we just didn't write it up that way. And so I got pretty upset about that, because that's hundreds of thousands of dollars that is a gift to a developer that other developers don't get. And so I raised a lot of concern about that, and only to find out a couple years later when I went back and reread that contract, on page 8 hidden, there was a full reimbursement agreement that was given from the city manager, and the council approved it, but it was hidden within the agenda and no one caught it. And I guarantee you, if anybody'd seen that, it would have given great pause. Storm at that time also came back to us after the roundabout was completed and said, or as it was being completed, he said, the roundabout's a little bigger, and we're going to need 4 slivers of land, or 3 slivers of land, because it's a little bit bigger. And hey, guess what? McConnell Foundation owns those slivers, and hey, they've already had it appraised, so we'll give them a check for $450,000, which the city did. And so all said and done, the taxpayers paid that full $1.2 million. They paid that completely on the backs of the taxpayers, and I was super upset at that. And if that's all that there was, I wouldn't have been too upset. I was upset, but I wouldn't have been too upset. But then a short time after that, a gentleman by the name of Hank calls me up, and I didn't know him, but he said, why is somebody from the city of Redding putting wooden stakes in my lawn? And his property is just west of that same roundabout on Old Alturas, or Old Oregon Trail, excuse me. And Old Alturas, isn't it? Yeah. And I said, I don't know, Hank, but I'll get a hold of Brian Crane, Public Works, and we'll find out about that. And so I call up Brian. He says, yeah, no, we're out there. We're gonna we need to do some road widening. We need to put a turn lane in, and we need to buy, the future widening. And I said, what's the price of that? And he said $6.9 million. And I said, Brian, this is not on our list of 200 road improvements in the city. And that's a lot of money, almost $7 million, and it's not on our list. And so the city of Redding has a list of road priorities. And number 1 being the highest priority, and that's the first one that you do, and then number 2, and then all the way down to 200. Well, this one wasn't even on that list at all. And I said, we'll put it on at 201, and we'll get to it 200 projects from now. And he said, no, we just need to get this done. And I'm thinking, we don't need to get this done. There's not a level of traffic there that would warrant spending $7 million right now. We've got many other projects way ahead of that, hundreds of projects ahead of that. And he said, well, we just need to get it done. And so, the council approved it. I was just scratching my head. The council didn't understand. I didn't really understand why they needed to push this through. And $6.9 million. And then I started thinking, why, months later, I started thinking, why would he push that? It's quite expensive. And why would he push that? And then I started hearing some long distance talks that McConnell Foundation is going to most likely have a project off of Shasta View. And if the taxpayers would cover the improvements before they announce their project, that when they go to look at their traffic modeling, hey, the traffic flows. And so instead of being a condition of approval for the developer, that would be normal. It's already done on the backs of the taxpayers. So you have $6.9 million there. You have $1.2 million on the roundabout, but it gets worse. If you go on Old Alturas now, you're going to take a look right there by Arroyo Manor on Churn Creek. You're going to see about a $10 million project. I'm estimating at $10 million. It may be more, maybe slightly less, but it's probably more. They're widening the bridge there, and that's the final piece to have the traffic flow from Shasta View through the roundabout all the way to Victor Avenue and beyond. That's all on the backs of the taxpayers, and I guarantee you within about a year from now, McConnell's going to announce their project on Shasta View. Their traffic model is going to show that everything flows good and no beefing up of roadways and the highway and so forth. And so when you add all that up, that's just on one road. That's about $20 million gift from the taxpayers to McConnell Foundation. Now, that's pretty bad, but it gets a lot worse than that because that's just one road. There are many, many roads in this town. And when you start adding it all up, it's how McConnell Foundation goes from approximately a $100 million philanthropy organization to approaching a $1 billion operation. Now, why would the city manager do this? Because this is clearly a form of corruption. Well, it's obvious that there's got to be kickbacks. And, without quality reporting in this town, nothing happens. And that's what's led up to this. And this is exactly what the Wall Street Journal article talked about in 2001. And it's happened. And McConnell's not the only one. They have just mastered it. There are other organizations now getting into this same type of corruption. And that's why you really need people, on the council that's willing to dig and then to make changes. And, we've made a lot of changes. When I was with the Shasta County Board of Supervisors, we've had a lot of changes. They need a serious change at City Hall to stop this form of corruption that's already underway. And again, that's what I witnessed firsthand. But when you can't count to three, you can't make any changes. And I was not able to have the support when I was on council to make these changes. Fire your city manager, get some new eyes in there, start cleaning it up. But it's some serious money, and you wonder why the city's in economic peril. Well, they have been overspending in their general fund and tons of kickbacks to people. When I first got on the Shasta County Board of Supervisors, an issue came up with the McConnell Foundation, and I said in open session, anything with McConnell Foundation's name on it, I will not support. Anything I will not support. They are a corrupt organization. That didn't go over too well with some of the community members out there, but it is absolutely true, and I'm not going to back off of that. And so that's just one project, and fun stuff. And I have to get going. I do have another meeting coming up. I appreciate you guys letting me on and speak.
I've got a question for you, Pat. I've got a question.
Sure, Nick. Go ahead.
Do you have any idea what the project is that McConnell Foundation wants to put out there by Shasta View?
What I have heard is that it is like a 4-year university, like an art institute, a university, a 4-year university is what I understand.
Thank you so much. Thanks for calling in, buddy. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Patrick. Have a great day.
So I'm sitting
John.
here
Thanks,
thinking,
Nick.
I wonder if that's the reason there's so much kickback about Dr. Danuka wanting to put in a medical college here. If that plays into that, because, I see, in my opinion, Matt Plummer's against the medical college coming in, and I think it'd be a good deal. And they're just making up all kinds of excuses. But getting back to the money that the city is spending on infrastructure, how much are we going to spend down there at Bonnie View and Bocelli Lane? How much have we already spent that's going to benefit the Wind River Indians?
I have no clue, but going back to that project that Patrick was talking about, I'm curious who got won the bids to do all the construction work.
Oh, you want to hear about bids? This is a good one. I went to a city council meeting and I asked them why New Pond was shut down. That's a new recreational area on Henderson Road. It used to be the Henderson Open Space. The taxpayers spent millions of dollars developing that down there. There's some nice bridges, walking bridges, one bridge you can drive over. And so I went in and I said, well, it's got to be related to the cancer center that they're building there right behind where the old Rayleighs used to be. And it seems to me that if it's the traffic flow problem interfering with the construction, you could go down to the gates and just blade a little way in there and the public could use it. And they didn't pay any attention to me, but at the end of public comment, Tanessa kind of brought it up a little bit, and Barry Tippin jumped in and he says, well, one of the bridges floated off its foundation down there and we can't let the public in until it's fixed. More or less, that's what he said. And so the next day or a couple days later, I emailed Barry. I says, who built that bridge and how much did it cost us? Well, he passed us on to Travis Mann, who took Kim Niemer's place, the head of REC down there. And he emailed me back. He said, well, I need to know which bridge you're talking about, Nick. There's 3 bridges down there. And, Barry was wrong about that. It didn't flow off the foundation. The abutment washed out or something like that. And it's fixed now. But we still need to do a little work to shore up the abutments and stuff. And you can tell they're just making excuses. That's exactly what our public people do anymore, is make excuses. So anyway, I talked to a friend of mine that went down there walking around. He says, you know, you could fix that place with a lawn tractor in a day, and we could be using it. In the meantime, one of my neighbors went down and talked to the construction crew and asked them if they were responsible for cutting off the access to that. And of course, they said no, they didn't know anything about it. It's not like you'd confess to that, would you? And a lot of people were using that. There's a lot of people that are angry they can't use it. So in the meantime, I see that they tear up the road all the way past the gates that I had suggested they could cut a little road into and people could use it. And it's clear to me the only reason our recreational facility down there, New Palm, is closed is because of the construction that's going on down there. And, you know, that's just a shame. They could have worked around it.
Yeah. Oh, I want to take the time to thank our sponsors. We have a new one. I gotta thank Jefferson State Diesel. They help us keep the lights on here. Freaking amazing. That's where I take my truck. And if you need any diesel mechanic work, guaranteed they are the best people. They're huge supporters of the community, and there's nowhere else I would ever take my vehicle other than Jefferson State Diesel. If you drive a Prius, don't take it there.
Well, they might need it to block the wheels on some of those big rigs, keep them from rolling out into the road or something.
Okay, but not against anything. I actually do know some good patriots that drive Priuses, so nothing against Prius people, but
they're unusual.
Yeah, okay, so also we have a new sponsor that really stepped up to the plate, and Taylor Motors. They are great. I see them at all the fundraisers. If I was going to go buy a new vehicle, there's nowhere else I would go because they really, really stepped up and they're helping us out like a lot. They're another gold level sponsor. Also, Taylor Collision Center. I mean, hopefully I don't have any collisions, but if I do, I'm definitely going to take it there. I want to thank them so much. And if you need to buy a new vehicle, you should probably go and talk to them. They're great people, great family, and thank you so much. I just wanted to shout that out before I forgot.
You know, Howard Taylor wasn't any friend with the McConnell Foundation.
No, they weren't best buds?
Oh, no. The McConnell Foundation did him bad, and I can't remember it right now, but it'll come to me, and I'll bring it up. And I talked to him personally. He didn't know me or anything. I got his number from a neighbor, and I called him up and chatted with him. He was very knowledgeable. He made a good point about what they'd pulled. I just don't remember what it is. Oh, I know what it is. You want to hear it? Oh, okay. So Howard owned the northwest corner of Shasta View and Highway 44. And he wanted to move his dealership out there. And it required a zone change. And in the meantime, when he got his dealership out there, he'd already talked to Safeway about being the anchor store with his property where it sits right now at the southeast corner of Cypress and Churn Creek. So he was going to develop a mall there after he moved it out there, but it required a zone change. So when he goes in to apply for a zone change, the guy that took the application says, oh, the McConnell Foundation isn't going to like this.
Okay, what say do they have in it?
Well, it got turned down. And Howard didn't take it lightly. He spent a lot of money. In fact, he bought property out from underneath the foundation just to get back at him. I think part of it was the Ross Ranch out there on Old Oregon Trail. And but getting back to Howard, the McConnell Foundation owned the property across from Taylor Motors, where Safeway is now. So they nixed his project and built it on their property across the street.
I wonder if they had any problem with their zoning.
Oh, I have my doubts.
Well, since we're talking about government efficiency, another thing that, going back to what sparked this conversation was the increase in sales tax. So they started charging people to park downtown, which was very popular with the businesses down there. I mean, they were like, people said, oh, it's going to make the businesses more visible because nobody wants to pay for parking. Okay, so just to throw it out there, I just looked at the 2024 numbers Okay, the expenses to charge the peasants to park downtown, which hurts the downtown businesses, which, to be honest, this is just the operating revenue that it takes them to charge people. Okay, it cost $449,925. Now I got this off City Redding's website. This is not off of some wherever.
449,000.
And 925, just $75 shy of $450,000 is what it cost the city. Okay, the revenue they brought in was $316,273.
They need that 1 cent. They've got to make that up.
So they're losing money. They're losing what, $5,000 to $10,000 a month, depending on the month, to charge people to park downtown. Now, I just want to say, if the businesses are doing worse downtown because of the parking problems, doesn't that, you have to equate that as less revenue for the city also, less revenue for the county, less revenue
Sales
for the
tax.
state also.
Sales tax.
It's less revenue generated for the
Everybody.
government, the worse that the local stores do downtown.
Sure.
There's plenty of ways to, okay, if it's 2-hour max parking and that's what they want to do is make sure people don't park down there all day, then it's very simple. You just, if someone parks in front of your business, there's already traffic officers all over the place. There's bike cops, you know what I'm saying? We already have it. We don't need a whole new system to make sure people aren't parking for a long time, because anybody who has those businesses, if someone's parking out in front of their business all day long, I would probably just go and leave a note. Or if I saw them, I'd say, hey man, don't park in front of my business all day for 8-10 hours. Okay. You're not supposed to park here more than 2 hours. And I need this spot open for my customers. Or I'd write them a note. And if they just kept doing it, then I'd call and say, hey, this guy keeps parking out here. I'd take a picture. There'd be a simple way where people that ran the businesses could kind of do all the work for free. It wouldn't cost anything. The existing traffic police could write them a ticket, $50 the first time, $100, and then it could just double every time if someone's real stubborn.
Hey, Porky, REU will buy you an electric bicycle and you won't need that parking spot. They're turning Redding into a bicycle town with all these lanes and everything, so they're going to have to put up parking for bicycles. I wonder what they're going to charge for that.
Well, if it's an e-bike, you probably can park for free and probably charge it for free.
And maybe get a rebate.
But you know what the funny thing is? Yeah, you get a rebate, but I bet if you are pedal powered,
yeah,
they're going to say like that creates more CO2 when you breathe out.
Because you're breathing harder.
Because you're breathing harder, so it's like it's not green. But the lithium-ion batteries are super green. They're not, when they do the strip mining for those batteries, like Raba,
that doesn't count. We've got to start at zero. Okay, we got the battery. Forget how much carbon that contributed. We're starting at zero and going forward. They had a windmill meeting, the state did, over at the Red Lion a couple weeks ago. And one of the questions I ask is, what's the break-even point? After you mine all of the mining that goes into the metal and the concrete, the hundreds of thousands of tons that goes into the foundation of each one of those windmills, and the carbon footprint, when is the break-even point when it's up and running? Well, there isn't one. They'll never make up for the carbon they polluted, which I don't think carbon's a pollutant. But getting back to downtown, they're killing downtown, in my opinion. I don't go downtown.
Yeah, I've never paid for parking down there. I don't want to get a ticket either, so I'll like park at Rite Aid and walk, like when I go to Board of Supervisors meetings.
Sure.
From what I understand, you can park in that back parking lot. It's kind of jammed up there for me, and I don't mind walking. So I park at Rite Aid or what's the other one right
Walgreens.
there? Walgreens or Rite Aid, something like that. I park there. They got a couple shade trees. It's always like wide open. It doesn't seem like it bothers them. They have like, I don't know, a couple hundred parking spots. There's usually maybe 5 cars in there at the most. So I park in there by a shade tree and walk down just out of stubbornness. But the people that own businesses down there are definitely feeling it.
Yeah, getting back to rebates on bicycles and cars. You know, how does REU justify giving rebates for bicycles? I mean, they're flat out buying bicycles for low income people, and what they're doing is taking that money. Your $70 charge for reading your meters helping pay for that. That's socialism. You take from the people that have and give to the people that don't.
Yeah, well, there's a point in time where the people that carry all the weight just say, "Screw it, I'm done. I'm done." Like there becomes a certain time where you get squeezed so hard that you get fed up, and and sometimes you can't. Like if I didn't have kids and a wife and all that kind of stuff, if I was by myself, I don't know. I might just be living free and you know, I mean, you got to pay your property taxes. You got to pay.
Oh, sure.
I mean, it's just all the taxes. And if they taxed you too much, they call it a fee. And it's just, it can be overwhelming for a lot of people. And they just opt out, you know?
Well, look at San Francisco Deli. They just shut down. I dare say that.
They shut down?
Yes, the 13th, I believe, is their last day.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
The guy's going to keep up the catering, but he said that the escalation of costs and the lack of being able to get help, that they're just calling it quits.
I wonder if it's a lack of people being able to keep their own money is the reason nobody freaking eats out, because they can't freaking afford it.
Well,
maybe we just need more taxes and more government. Then maybe the government could just own San Francisco Deli.
Yes.
And then it would never shut down.
They could give you a little coupon. Oh, you've only got 2 years of college? Okay, you get a half a sandwich and a bag of chips. Oh, you've got a PhD? You can have 2 sandwiches and a soda pop. You know, that's to me, that's what's really happened with our government, is they are promoting people that have college degrees, and a lot of those people are just good test takers. They've got no common sense. They can't make a decision. Most of their decisions are wrong.
Yeah, I don't know people that believe in big government, and
you
push it. You push pencils and you go, well, if we add this, it's going to generate this. It doesn't always work that way.
Big league dreams.
I down at my store, I do retail and I do wholesale too. But I buy products, I sell products. I could sit there and pencil out and go, well, if I just raise the price from $100 to $200, say I buy something for $90 and I sell it for $100, and I say, well, I'm just going to charge $200 now, and then at the end of the year, I'm going to make 1,000% more profit. I'm going to make 10 times more profit, and then the end of the year comes, and I didn't sell anything, and I lost a bunch of money.
Sure.
Wait, what happened? I added it up on paper that I was going to generate all this income because I wrote it down with a pencil.
And then Harbor Freight moved in next door.
Oh, well, we got a couple minutes left, or we can actually go as long as you want. I don't know if we want to keep it to an hour.
Oh, I just soon keep it to an hour.
Yeah. All right. Well, is there any other subjects you want to get into? I mean,
yes. Let's get into this one real quick. We've got the people that are complaining about Clint Curtis firing Joanna Francescott, and we can't go into depth with that. But I want to read a couple of comments from a news cafe. Here's Brad. Remember to call the state Secretary of State, and I'll give you the phone number to share your concerns. They really want to hear from the voters who becoming disenfranchised with Curtis. You can submit your complaints here online for all of the good it will do. Here's Frank Treadway. Time to form a picket line at the election department. No videos on my ballot. Keep voting. Keep voting the secret it has always been. They're not going to videotape your name on a ballot. It's still going to be, your vote is going to be anonymous. These people are so misleading. And here's Christian. I'm sure you know who Christian is.
Isn't that your brother?
My cousin.
Oh, okay.
He's the dark side of the family. They made him put an I in his name so people won't think it's us. No. That was a mean thing to say. I have to fill out a few of them. This is a mail-in deal, and ask that they send a monitor up to he's sending this to the Secretary of State. Ask that they send a monitor up to witness Clint the Clown's fake mock election he is planning. Should he do so, imagine Plum and Hobbs, that's Patty Plum and Laura Hobbs, in the controls. The folks on the phone were nice. They couldn't say much more. Yeah, I've gotten a lot of calls. 1,000, that's from the Secretary of State. Shasta County residents need to call or write SOS, Secretary of State. I called the Secretary of State, and I told the gal that I talked to that there's a lot of us that are very happy with our new register of voters, and that I personally am glad that he fired Joanna Francescott. And she didn't seem real happy to hear from me, but she said, okay, thank you. Here's the phone number, and everybody should call and tell them that you're happy with your new ROV and the way things are playing out in Shasta County, that you feel like you're finally getting transparency. The number is 916-653-6814. And you'll get on real quick. You just got to punch one button and somebody answered right away. That's 916-653-6814. And I don't know how to get this, how you can write them a complaint if you want to. I think that calling in would be sufficient, but
we'll find an email and we'll put it in the comment section or on the headline.
They need to hear from us, not just the other side, and that's been the problem with conservatives for a long time, in my opinion. We need to voice our opinion. I am happy with Clint Curtis. I am happy that Joanna Francesca got fired because she had the opportunity to show the transparency she would show us in the last election, and nothing changed.
Yeah. When they were out there protesting at Kevin Cry's business, which was very classy on their end, and they had some Antifa people and all these people, they were yelling and screaming at kids with bullhorns as they're trying to go and do these things because they feel like they got disenfranchised because nobody wanted Clint Curtis and everybody wanted Francesca.
That's not the truth.
And I went up there and they're yelling and screaming, and Clint Curtis actually showed up and he was standing there. And I said, hey, the guy you're protesting is right here. You want to go talk to him? And what's funny is some of these people will write articles about you, but you could be standing next to them and they won't even talk to you, and they'll just write their own fairy tale story about the reality of things instead of being a true journalist and asking questions, because Clint Curtis has been very clear that it will absolutely be what's the word I'm looking for? Sorry, it's
transparent.
No, where it's going to be anonymous. Sorry.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, that nobody's information is going to be revealed on the cameras or any of that, but they just run these stories like that's like, oh, now everyone's going to know how I vote. I mean, I could care less if people knew how I vote, but I understand that we absolutely not everybody's like that, and we should make sure that everything stays anonymous. Now,
and it will.
Now, when I was there, I was talking to Little Napoleon, and I said, hey, do you? And I was trying to ask everybody, and I was getting bullhorns, and I was getting the guy on his bike that was honking his horn, and like I was just trying to ask a question, like, hey, do you guys think that there's actually people that want Clint Curtis and don't want Francesca? Because you guys are asking like there's no way to please all the people all the time. But I was just asking the question, do you think there's actually, and they go, oh no, Record Searchlight ran a poll and it showed that 80% of the people don't want Clint and they want Joanna. And I go, well, don't you think that if you're like certain types of people are more prone to be voting at Record Searchlight? I go, don't you think if Mountaintop Media ran one, we would probably be overwhelming majority that would want Clint Curtis? And they go, oh no, polls are 100% accurate and this and that. And I was like, so if Fox News does a poll versus MSNBC, you think they're going to have the same statistics of people that subscribe to those news outlets? I mean, if you call, say 1,000 Democrats and ask them, who do you support, Trump or Biden? You're going to get a very skewed, or if you call, and that happens in polls a lot where it's not 100%, but they'll do like 75 and 25, one way or the other. They can be skewed both ways, but just because Record Searchlight did a poll and shows overwhelming majority, that's the facts. Majority of people want Francesca, and we got disenfranchised when they appointed Clint Curtis.
I voted 5 times.
Yeah. I voted 50 times.
There you go. You voted for Francesca?
I vote 50 times for everything.
There you go. Sounds like a good plan. I
right.
print my own ballots. You know, they sent me an extra ballot last time. I'd already voted, and I got another ballot in the mail.
Well, I mean, the efficiency. I mean, what, we're going to go down to 7 cents versus $2 something per ballot. We were losing $250,000 every election cycle because a little piece of paper didn't. Well, we're going to have to get into that another time because that's a whole nother can of worms. If we already went over our time a little bit.
Hey, listen, our show's winding down, but I think we're going to play a 18-minute video from YouTube with Tucker Carlson talking with General McGregor. He was a 4-star general. He's going to explain to you how many generals we have now and how many we had in World War II. Roughly in World War II, we had 13.2 million troops and 7 4-star generals. Now we have 1.2 million and 43 4-star generals. And he's going to explain to you why we're not war ready and why are you trying to drag us into a war just to get our rear ends kicked. A different point of view. Stay and listen to that. I think we're going to have it on. So thanks for having me on, John. We'll see you next week. Same time, same place, 7 a.m.
Thanks so much, Nick. And I think we're going to open up the phone to anybody that wants to call in next week for a little bit. So if you tune in next week, go ahead and let us know what you think. And even if you disagree with us, we'd love to hear what you got to say.
Send me your questions so I have an answer.
You can't be the only person who spent your life as an Army officer has reached these conclusions. Like, what are they thinking at the Pentagon? There have to be people who've come to the same positions.
Tucker, we have right now, I think 43, could be 44. It's usually 43 or 44 4-star generals and admirals. You have to think about that. We have a force of 1.1.
It seems like a lot.
Well, let me explain just how much it is. We have 1.12 million people in the armed forces. In other words, you add up all the armed services, that 1.12 million. In World War II, at the height of the war, end of 42, beginning of 43, when we had 12.2 million men under arms, we had 7 4-stars. 7 4-stars. I can tell you who they were. You had George Marshall, Chief of Staff of the Army, Douglas MacArthur commanding in the Pacific, Eisenhower commanding in Great Britain and in the European theater, Hap Arnold for the Air Force. Unofficially, he was the vice chief, but he was effectively commanding the air forces. And then you had Leahy, who was in the White House, Admiral Leahy as the liaison officer. He was effectively the unofficial chairman of the Joint Chiefs for FDR. Then you had Nimitz and King. King was the CNO, and Nimitz commanded in the Pacific. Now, somehow or another, with only 7 4-stars, we managed to survive the greatest, most destructive war in history, and fortunately end up on the quote-unquote winning side. Now we are blessed with 43 to 44 4-stars organized into multiple commands designed to blanket the globe with American military power and interest. I think it borders on lunacy, especially since we don't live in the world of 1920, 1945. This is the 21st century. Today, if you have forces forward, they're easy to identify, easy to target, easy to destroy. So what's the point of having a lot of forces forward? Well, we can always reinforce them. No, you can't. How do you get across these vast oceans, the Atlantic and the Pacific, when your opponents have submarine fleets? How many ships do they have to sink? Supply ships, transports, before everybody says, that's it, we're not going. Same thing true for aircraft. Well, we have better aircraft. We may have better aircraft, but we don't have very good air defenses. We've neglected air and missile defenses for years. In the Army, they always treated theater air and missile defense as sort of the redheaded stepchild because we haven't fought anybody that compelled us to defend ourselves from missile and air attack. Well, those days are over. In other words, if you press this war with Russia in Central East Europe, it will reach us here in the United States. People aren't thinking about that.
How many Americans do you think are assisting or fighting on the side of Ukraine right now?
Well, I don't know, but I imagine it must be hundreds because the President of the United States, as you know, has authorized combat pay. for Americans in uniform in Ukraine. Now, didn't specifically say uniform, just said Americans serving in Ukraine. So I imagine large numbers are in other uniforms, not necessarily American. Some may be assisting contractors or working with them, but a substantial number. And again, thus far, the Russians have been very careful about not necessarily targeting them. And it would be a mistake to assume that the Russians don't know where they are. And the latest strikes that we've had over the last couple of months have been all the way out on the border with Romania, the border with Poland, the border with Moldova. Precision strikes, Kinzhal missiles carrying 1,000-pound warheads. Great accuracy, very destructive. Why? The Russians are sending a message. If you think you're going to hide from us if you come in here, you're not going to do that. If you cross these borders, we will annihilate you. You'll never get to the Dnieper River. We won't permit it. And we need to come to terms with these realities because we can't defeat it. And see, this is the sad part. Somebody will say to me, well, Doug, you don't sound very patriotic. I'm not patriotic. I put my life on the line for the country. I have no compunction about fighting or killing anybody if we need to do it. Don't get me wrong. We don't need to do this. That's the point. This is unnecessary. And if we do it,
so I think a lot of Americans suspect that maybe our military force is weaker than we think it is. You're saying it's much weaker than we think it is.
Think of it like an engine. You have a 500 horsepower engine in 1991, and a 500 horsepower engine goes from 500 to 400 to 300 to 200 down to 100. Now, you don't notice very much because you don't put the pedal to the metal. It's good enough to get to the grocery store. It's good enough to drive on 95 for 50 miles. But if you put your foot down the pedal, you're going to discover that this is a very weak engine. It's not performing very well. It doesn't have what it once had. In other words, we've gone down in the horsepower arena militarily. This is the warning. This is what people need to understand. People say, well, what about all the money we spent? That's a damn good question. You spend all this money, what are you getting for it? Where did the money go? Who's making the decisions? And you have separate services. Each service lives in its own world, has its own doctrine, its own bureaucracy, its own way of war. All this jointness is just, fugazi nonsense. And you got lots of generals, and every general has a reason to exist. And every general has 1,000 men in his headquarters, every 4-star. And every 4-star needs money for his projects. And this becomes a giant trough feeding frenzy for people on the Hill. And nobody ever bothers to stand up and say, why? What are we doing this for? You just look at what's happening in Africa. Niger decided they'd had enough of their French overlords. The French retained ownership of virtually 50% of everything of value in their colonies in Afrique du Nord. Now, that's French business. Whatever the French want to do, it's fine with me. But my point is, we're involved there because we built an airstrip in Niger, and we marched in there to defeat Islamists. The truth is, there weren't very many Islamists until we showed up. Now there are lots of Islamists. What's wrong with that picture? And now it turns out the whole population, in addition to hating the French, has decided they hate us. So we've had a coup in Niger. It's now being backed by the Algerians, as well as the neighbors. And people are saying, well, we trained them. We gave them assistance, and they're turning on us. Oh, it must be the Wagner mercenaries. There aren't any Wagner mercenaries in the place. In other words, that we may have gone in there and blown it on our own, made mistakes of our own, backed the wrong horse, whatever you want to call it, doesn't occur to anybody. Well, it must be those Russians, or maybe those pesky Chinese. We have this unfortunate habit of seeing ourselves as always wearing the white hat, always doing everything right, and we miss the truth. And the truth is, soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines do what they're told. They'll go wherever you ask them to go. They'll put their lives on the line. But it doesn't always make sense. And sometimes it may be for profit, not for national interest, not for the interests of the American people. And that's the problem. And no one's been watching this thing. They see the flag, everybody salutes, everybody listens to the music, everyone's enthralled. But the old 500 horsepower engine is gone. We're down to 100 horsepower, and the 100 horsepower engine is trying to make it all over the world. It's not going very well. And we haven't even talked about our economy, obviously.
Given all of the, I mean, what you're saying is horrifying. And some of it, with respect, does seem kind of obvious. Almost nobody in the Congress is saying what you were saying. Chris Christie never served in the Congress, but he was a governor. He's been on the national stage for quite a long time. He's running for president now. He recently went to Ukraine to meet with the world's highest paid actor who runs it. I think we have a clip.
I believe that the overwhelming majority of the American people understand that we need to be with Ukraine on this fight.
Do you maintain the current commitment? Do you expand it or do you contract it?
I increase it.
My position on Ukraine, which is that we haven't done enough. And that while I think that President Biden has certainly done better than President Trump, and President Trump did better than President Obama on this, we still have more to go.
We can spend this money now and have Ukrainian soldiers fight our war, or we can spend a lot more money and American blood later to fight in Taiwan.
How do you respond to that?
When we were in Vietnam, I was 16, and I remember General Westmoreland telling everyone, if we don't fight these people in Vietnam and to fight them here, we'll be fighting them in Los Angeles and in all our major cities. So we have to stay here and win this, or that's what's going to happen.
A lot of them did go to Los Angeles and build thriving businesses, actually, in the end.
Well, my hat's off to them. That's fine. I have no problems with that. But I think it's a lot of nonsense, you know. And it's the same thing with Ukraine.
But Chris Christie's not stupid. He's very dishonest, obviously, but he's not stupid.
Well, he has donors.
That's what that is.
Of course. Where's he going to get his money? Well, there, Governor Christie, we want this war in Ukraine. We want to see that man Putin removed. We got to get rid of him and his regime. Why? Well, you know, it's not democratic. Most of the world is not democratic. There are a lot of people that don't think we're very democratic anymore.
We're not.
So who are we kidding? I think Americans are waking up. And Christie is probably there for name recognition and more money, but I don't see him winning anything.
No. But he does, I mean, in a blusterier way, he's expressing the same thing that the rest of them, Nikki Haley and all the rest, are
Well,
saying.
doesn't this also divert attention from far more serious matters here at home? It really does. What does it cost Christie to say, we have to beat those Russians? Nothing. Doesn't cost him anything. Costs the country a great deal in terms of money, prestige. What Fitch just downgraded our credit worthiness one more time. And people say, oh, it's not a problem. You know, the bond yields are on their way up and prices are on their way down. When is the Treasury bond fire sale going to happen? When do banks offload these Treasury bonds that they bought when they were at zero interest because they're now worthless? What's going to happen in China, in Japan, in Saudi Arabia, where they have lots of bonds? I mean, we're fragile. We're vulnerable. Nobody even mentions it because nobody wants to fess up and tell the truth. We've overreached. We're running on fumes. What about this economy? What are we building? What are we producing? You know, that's what made us a great power between 1865 and basically 1920. That's when your industrial base was created. That's when you had people like Edison and Tesla, Rockefeller, all these people. They were tough and they were intelligent and they were effective. The only person I see out there now who's remotely like that is Musk. He's building something. He's creating something. When you do that, you create employment. I don't see that happening. High-tech startups? The hell are they? What are they doing for us? A new app on your phone? We've got to wake up and say, oh, well, AI. AI is better algorithms. Better algorithms do not replace human beings. And they don't necessarily create opportunity for people to work. We've got to think this thing through very carefully. We haven't done that. What about our energy sector? Oil, gas, we've killed it. We have half the refineries we once had? California had something in the neighborhood of 43 or 44 refineries. They're down to 23. You know, how long before suddenly we're in another energy crisis and we need to rapidly refine fuel. Can we do it? Well, the answer is it's going to be tough. It applies, the same thing applies to Raytheon. We want 200 missiles and we want them now. Well, we have no surge capacity. There's no excess capacity built into anything. What are we going to do with this scientific industrial base? What about our agricultural sector? What are we doing for that? I mean, high-end manufacturing is dead. We need to repatriate lots of industries. That's what President Trump talked about. We absolutely need to do that. People say, well, we want free trade. Well, I'm 100% for free trade as long as it doesn't kill us. But if it kills us, then I'm for protection. I think we need to understand how we got where we are today. I don't see anybody talking about that. And I think Americans are beginning to turn these people off. Democrats, Republicans, it's the uniparty. Who are we kidding? What are they doing for us? The swamp gets bigger and richer. The rest of the country gets poorer. I don't see any good outcome right now from any of these candidates. Perhaps I'm too harsh, but that's the way I feel.
Last question, and it's more a piece of tape that I want to get you to respond to, but I think it's come to a lot of people's attention. This is just so perfect that one of the spokesmen for the Ukrainian military is an American guy, leftist, dressed up like a woman, who's now wearing a Ukrainian army uniform and talking about killing Putin. Watch this.
If you look at Putin's mouth, you'll notice that blood drips from it. He's a vampire, carrying out genocide against both Ukrainians and Russians alike. Vlad Putin bathes in the blood of innocent children and enjoys it. And this is why the dictator of the Russian Federation must be deposed, and why peace talks have to be focused on President Zelensky's 10-point peace formula and the full liberation of Ukraine.
There's something so perfect about that, the convergence of every ugly anti-human trend in modern
Is that a transgender
life.
Person?
That's a guy with fake breasts. Yes.
Yeah, that's interesting. Well, I think everything else is fake too. We estimate that at least 60,000 children from Ukraine have disappeared, vanished since this war began. Where are they? What about all of the women that have been sold into prostitution that once lived in Ukraine? This war is a catastrophe. The people bathing in blood are in Kiev and Washington, not in Moscow. And this sort of thing is going to play well until it can't. And that's the sad part. We're going to see this whole thing collapse and implode. It's coming.
And with it, NATO?
I would think so, because the Europeans right now, Germany is well into a recession. It has systematically deindustrialized itself by casting its lot with the anti-Russian crowd. And remember that in Europe, it was not very difficult to supply stereotypes left over from the Second World War of the Soviet armed forces. The Soviet army was, an exercise in barbarism and savagery, mass rape, you name it. It was terrible. That's not Russia today. Russia today is a very different society, very different state. And that's been Putin's effort from day one. He's been interested in restoring Russia as an Orthodox Christian state with a true national identity and a strong national culture. That's probably another reason why so many people want to destroy Russia, because it's the last European state that has not been flooded with foreigners and turned into some sort of polyglot experiment, which is failing badly, by the way, because at some point, all of these unwanted people in Europe, and for that matter, here as well, I suspect, when things fall apart economically, it's going to get very hard on them. Because people are going to look around and they go through this, well, wait a minute, I'm an American. Who are you? What are you doing here? Why are you living that way? Why are you being subsidized? I'm a German. You don't belong here. You need to go home.
I'm getting $1,400 a month in retirement that I paid into my entire life, and you just show up from Congo and you're getting $2,200.
Well, here's another one. The president announced yesterday on one of these tweets, somebody tweets for him, obviously, that the people that have lost everything in Hawaii, thousands of them lost everything, are going to receive a one-time payment of $700. No. I haven't been to Hawaii in a long time. I'm not even sure I've ever been there. But I know that $700 isn't going to take care of a family for very long.
No.
But in the meantime, hundreds of millions, billions of dollars continue to flow into this black hole called Ukraine, which I think is an exercise in fraud, deceit, and criminality, to be blunt. So when's it going to stop? When are we going to take care of Hawaii? Let's go back to Ohio, where we had the derailment and the chemical spill. 4,000 human beings living in this area. The water is still not fit to drink, as I understand it. We wouldn't even invest the money to move those people to a safer area, even if it meant temporary housing or permanent housing, until this thing was cleaned up. What have we done? This is the problem. It is America last on every level. The last people who are consulted, the last people who are benefiting from anything that goes on in Washington are Americans. This cannot go on. It's got to end. And I think it will end. But unfortunately, it's like everything else. We're going to have to be pushed over the cliff into the abyss. I think that's where we're headed.
Well, on that cheerful note, retired Colonel Douglas MacArthur.